thought that I might fall apart. And even though I'm just a fool, I'm so blue, yeah. I know that I can make it through. I'll keep on fighting. Watch me go. I'll be living in a better world. Ooh, you never bring me down. You never bring me down. You never bring me down. Listen up, I hear you talking. Put my stride in where I'm walking. You never bring me down.
What's up, Red Wings fans? Welcome inside the Belfour Center here at Little Caesars Arena for Development Camp, presented by Huntington Bank. 2022 Development Camp, you guys. It's been a while since we've seen a development camp here at Little Caesars Arena. I'm Daniella Bruce alongside Art Regner, Ken Kal. Carley Johnston is also joining us down on ice level, but great to see all the prospects here. Like I said, 2019 was the last time we were able to hold a development camp, so it's been fun. Some of the prospects that we haven't seen in a few years.
Well, the other thing I'm looking at is the names and numbers on the back of their jersey,
Yes.
and I can remember a couple of years ago they didn't have them, so it's great to identify the players. But, this is almost like spring training for the Tigers in my book, because it's an opportunity for us to meet some of the younger players, especially the players that have been drafted over the last couple days.
Yeah, that's right. And even 2020 and 2021 draft picks, we have never had the chance to see most of them. So it's exciting to see them here at Little Caesars Arena today.
Well, right. I mean, you can only do so many Zooms before you start saying, "Is this real?" And they are. They're real hockey players. They're out here on the. Out here on the ice. I'm getting all kinds of stuff in my ear right now. It's really throwing me off, and it's annoying. But aside from that, I just want to say that that I'm excited about this, and I'm looking forward to it. And the thing that I really like about it, more than anything, is that talking to Danny Cleary yesterday, or Dan Cleary or Daniel Cleary, again, depending on what phase of your life you got to know him, that he was really interesting, because he really stressed that this is not a highly competitive camp. This is more, Ken's a big fan of musicals, and it reminds me of the song like The King and I, the musical Getting to Know You, that, a very famous song. And I think that this is essentially what it is, getting to know you, getting to know all about you, I mean, it's, and so I think what's good about this is that we're just getting to see these guys play hockey, have fun, get acclimated to what life is in the NHL, and the Red Wings kind of way of life. And so it's kind of low key, but it's fun, and I think everybody is just so relieved that we're all back together again, the old gang. And I'm really looking forward to it, because I think what's going to happen is that when these kids leave, and they are kids, they really are kids, each year I get older, they get a lot younger, it seems like, but I think it's going to be. I think it'll be great. I think it'll be great, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for all of us to kind of recharge and get refreshed and look forward to the upcoming season.
That it is. The prospects are split into two teams right now, Team Lindsay and Team Howe. For this hour, we will be taking a look at Team Howe, which consists of Marco Kasper, Dylan James, and Brennan Ali. All three of those players were taken in the 2022 NHL draft over the weekend. Right now, we are going to pitch it down to Carley Johnston, who is joined by Sean Horkoff.
Thanks, Danielle. Appreciate it. As she mentioned, I'm joined by Director of Player Development, Sean Horkoff. Sean, we're here at Development Camp, finally back at Little Caesars Arena. How exciting is it to see the guys in person again?
Yeah, it is. I think, it has been a while, and it's always an exciting time when you see the future of the Wings, and obviously with the new draft picks that we haven't seen too much of, but even mixing them in with some of the guys that have been around for a bit.
Right, as Danielle mentioned, we have a few of them out on the ice for Team Howe right now, including Marco Kasper, who went 8th overall for the Detroit Red Wings. It was a quick turnaround for him. I saw him on the flight the next morning at like 7 a.m. with us, right after the draft. So it's really exciting. I'm sure he's elated to be here in Detroit. He said it's his first time actually in Detroit. So what's it like seeing these young guys come into a new town and a new rink?
Well, it's exciting. I think, it's a nice chance for us. Obviously, the amateurs, this is their job, right? They spend countless hours getting to know these guys and watch them as players, but also get to know them as people. So for us and the rest of management and development, once we get them in here, it's kind of our chance to not only get to know them, what their personalities are like, but also show them around. We have a large staff, so they get to know they come in and start to get to know the kind of staff that's going to deal with them in the future, and also see the amazing facilities that we have here.
Speaking of personalities, Chris Draper told us that Marco Kasper actually learned the Swedish language before going over to play in the SHL. So that kind of just speaks to the kind of guy he is off the ice as well, which I'm sure plays a little bit into who you draft.
It plays a lot. It plays a lot. We obviously Drapes and his staff and and Steve and we all put a huge emphasis on the type of people that we want to add to the organization. And obviously Marco, I spent a year during the lockout in Sweden. It's very, very impressive. You can't underestimate how hard it is to do what he did, learning a language. But just, I actually asked him about it. And he's like, well, school's important to me. I want to continue my education. I just thought it was going to be easier to get my degree than my high school degree if I understood the language. So very, very impressive kid, very impressive young man, and just another, we want to have those type of personalities and those qualities, in our locker room and our organization.
Sure. And what is your favorite part about being in person at development camp again?
I think just honestly to spend some time, like for me, for the kids that we draft, at least the majority of them, you get 20 minutes with them in Buffalo at that pre-draft combine. You don't, like I said, it's our amateur staff's kind of job to meet them and get to know them. But then once we draft them, you really get to start to see what their personalities are like, And we're, like to Danny's point yesterday, this isn't an evaluation; it's a learning process for us. But on top of that, we do an extensive amount of work on testing and things like that, so that when the kids do leave, we have a very good understanding of what their deficiencies are and what they need to work on going forward. So that's probably the one nice thing is we really get to dig into what we have in the 4 or 5 days here.
That's super interesting from the outside looking in, being able to come here and see how you guys assess the players. It's not just taking shots on the net. There's a lot of technology involved in it, which is super interesting to me.
Yeah, it is. It's certainly not the way it was when I was younger. You just kind of showed up and really they bagged you as hard as they could, and then you jump on the bike for a quick ride. But science is definitely an aspect of that now. Mike Barwitz and his staff here, our director of sports science. I know Steve was big on it. Myself is big on it. Our whole staff in general, wants to use technology to maximize, our knowledge in how we can get these players better, really. And so we have this beautiful facility. We've certainly done what we can to put as much technology into it to do our jobs as best as possible.
I know we talked about having development camp back in person, but the draft also was something that was back in person after a couple of years. What was it like being able to see these young guys have their dreams come true? Yeah,
it's a great day. I think obviously the first rounders, it's special for them. They put a lot of work for all of them, but I think that they're the ones that the first day. Obviously it's just the first round, right? But I think one of my most favorite times is the 7th round. When you hear the odd. There's always 1, 2, sometimes 3 people with a group of about 25 that go crazy when their name's called, and I love that. I love seeing that. They're sitting there for 2 days and not knowing if they're going to get drafted, and obviously to see a lifelong dream come true. So I always get really excited when I see that happen. It's a good sight.
One of our 7th rounders, Brennan, out on the ice right now, so I won't keep you for long, but I just want to know, how important is the development of a player before he gets to the NHL?
Well, it's hugely important. I think when you draft these kids, they're kids, and the majority, the NHL nowadays, they're incredible athletes, and these guys don't leave any stone unturned in terms of trying to get the most out of their ability, and these kids don't know that yet, right? So there's a big education process on what it takes not only to make it, but then to stay a long time and to be an impact player, and there's lots of education. So this is kind of the first step in that direction, but. Development is changing. It used to be a small staff and used to be kind of one person, but now we've got skating coaches, skill coaches. We've got, we're lucky to have obviously Dan Cleary runs North America now, and Nick Cromwell over in Europe. So the staffs are growing because the importance of drafting or developing your young players is becoming really clear to all organizations. So, we feel like we have one of the best staffs in the league, and they're proving it. They're doing a great job.
I couldn't agree more. And like you said, this is just the beginning, so there's so much more fun to have in the rest of this summer. So thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you at Prospects Tournament Development, in training camp.
Yep, thanks
So much. Danielle, back to you.
Thank you, Carly. And of course, another big thank you to Sean Horkoff, Red Wings Assistant General Manager. Some great info there from him. Obviously, development camp is really exciting for them, and it's been a while since they've been able to see these guys. So great to see them out there. Right now, we are taking a look at Team Howe running through some drills, and we've got some prospects that were drafted in the 2022 NHL draft just last week in Dylan James, Marco Kasper, and Brendan Ali. Marco Kasper, you guys, let's start there. The number 8 overall pick in the NHL draft, a center out of Rogla. We're excited about him, right? Art, I know you really, really wanted the Red Wings to take a center, and for once, you nailed it. You got that part right in the draft.
Maybe not the right center. No, I meant
a center.
A center. It was pretty obvious. That's what they wanted. I mean, if you look overall at the draft, 4 centers drafted, 3 left wings, and a couple of defensemen, and don't forget another, which could be the biggest acquisition, at least immediate impact, is trading a 3rd-round pick for Philly Husso. So the goaltender that we got to talk to yesterday for the first time. I think that Marco Kasper, just looking at him out on the ice here, obviously, he's pretty tall, and he has a little lanky. His body's going to fill out, and the thing that they talk about him is his high energy, high motor, high hockey IQ, and is able really to likes to go into the greasy areas and score goals, and isn't afraid to use his body, and a complete player. Certainly the Red Wings need help at center. It's no secret. I think we all know that. It'll be interesting to see come Wednesday exactly what the club does, maybe to address it immediately, because Marco Kasper, it sounds like, even though Danielle and I did an interview with Chris Draper yesterday that on the Word on Woodward, which turned out very, very well. Chris was, as usual, he was his jovial self. But with that said, they were unsure if he was, if he was going to go back to Rogla. Would he stay in North America, perhaps Grand Rapids, or does he, pull a Lucas Raymond and end up making the team? But it does appear that he's going to go back to Sweden, I would assume, for next year. The way the Swedish hockey system is run is that he will probably get a much larger role in Rogla, which is a very, very good hockey club. First power play perhaps, first, second line, a lot of ice time. So I would assume that the maturation process for Marco Kasper and the timeline, which I do think is a bit of a fast track, and again, I just feel that way, that he will be that next year at this time he has a real legitimate shot at making the club.
Dylan James, 2nd-round pick over the weekend, also out on the ice right now. We are looking at all of the forwards that have been assigned to Team Howe for this development camp here at Little Caesars Arena. Ken, Dylan James has an impressive resume behind him. He won with Sioux City in the USHL. They won a Clark Cup last year, and he was the USHL Rookie of the Year. Looking forward to going to North Dakota in the fall to play some college hockey. So we're definitely going to be keeping our eye on him as well, and he's a left wing.
Well, the thing about him is he's in pretty good company as far as the other players that were the USHL Rookies of the Year. And just to give you an example, guys like Cole Sillinger, who we saw last year in the Prospects Tournament, ended up being with the Columbus Blue Jackets. He won that award. Andrei Svechnikov, Jake Gensel, Kyle Oposo, Johnny Gaudreau, who's a terrific hockey player, Anders Lee, we've seen him for many years with the Islanders, Max Pacioretty played at Michigan, and Joe Pavelski, who's a pretty gifted scorer, playing with the Dallas Stars right now. So he's in really good company, and what that tells me, Daniela and Art, is that he's a real gem, really. And most times when you win that award, you turn out to be a really good NHL player. So I'm looking at James as one of those guys that maybe perhaps sooner than later he could be a Red Wing, and he's a complete player per Chris Draper. Draper talked about him, and plays a 200-foot game, kind of like Chris did in the National Hockey League. And some people compare him to Andre Palat, and of course Steve Yzerman knows Andre Palat from being with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So Andre Palat is also an unrestricted free agent, and who knows? Maybe he ends up here in Detroit. We'll have to wait and see if free agency is just around the corner. So, James, I have high expectations for him, and he looks like a pretty solid player.
And then Brennan Ali was a 7th-round pick in 2022. That is also a part of this group. He's wearing 98 for those of you watching the stream right now, if you want to take a look out on the ice for him. He was somebody that Chris Draper told Art and I in the Word on Woodward that they were actually surprised that he was still available with that final pick in the draft. So they were ecstatic to get him, and he was also there at the draft. And he said it was great to hear his family react after they called his name. So excited to see Brennan Ali, another center. Art, the Red Wings went pretty forward heavy, specifically center heavy in this 2022 draft.
Right, and he played a majority of his games for Avon Old Farm School, which I believe is a high school. But if you look at the alumni from that school who have played in the NHL, it's pretty impressive. So he comes from a pretty good program. He's a Notre Dame commit, and and he played a little bit in the USHL. So here's somebody that you could really look. And the Red Wings, and we know this for years, has been known as a team that finds the diamonds in the rough. Maybe the latest one, and I don't want to put pressure on him, is Elmer Soderblom, who's coming over, who was a lower round pick, 5th or 6th, I think 6th round actually. But anyway, my point being is that Brendan Ali could be that guy, and certainly he's got size, 6'1", 201 pounds, and to find him in the 7th round, as Chris Draper, as you alluded to, Daniela, told us yesterday, this is somebody that I know I'm going to be watching closely because certainly again, good size, as I said, 6'1", 201. He plays he's a center and a left-handed shot, so you can't get enough. Look. How many times, and Ken, you know this, we heard Kenny Holland say, and, Steve has also adopted that philosophy of, you want to take as many kicks of the can as you can. And, it certainly looks like in this last draft, the way the Red Wings, and it kind of fell that way. They weren't specifically looking for it, but to draft 4 center icemen, you've got to hope that a couple of these guys someday will make their way to Detroit.
Let's talk a little bit about the college program. Art, you mentioned Notre Dame. We all know about Michigan State and Michigan, and how they developed their players over the years. A lot of them ended up in the National Hockey League. But when you look at Notre Dame, 92 draftees came from Notre Dame, and 45 of them under head coach Jeff Jackson. Jeff Jackson is a terrific head coach. I think he started his career as an assistant with Lake Superior State under Frank Anzalone, went to Notre Dame. And
what a character Frank was.
Yeah, and Jeff Jackson, just a terrific head coach, and he doesn't get a lot of credit for what he's done. But again, 45 draftees under him. So, he's a terrific hockey coach, great program at Notre Dame. And the thing about Ali, too, is you want to find those diamonds in the rough. And we just heard Sean Horkoff talking with Carley Johnston about how excited 7th-round players are when they get drafted. And those are the diamonds in the rough that you have your fingers crossed, hoping that maybe he finds pay dirt with a player like that, and that's just a bonus. When you can find a player in the late rounds of the draft and eventually make your hockey team, that's a bonus for your club.
You mentioned Jeff Jackson. Real quickly, good, from Roseville, Michigan, graduated from Michigan State University, just an excellent coach, one at every level, but he's known as a defensive specialist. They're kind of the opposite of what the University of Michigan hockey team is, which is a little bit of a run and gun squad, as we know, with the wealth of forwards that Michigan has had. And Notre Dame actually had Michigan's number last year a lot, but my point being is that former Red Wing Riley Sheehan played at Notre Dame, and Jeff Jackson said that when he got there, he actually had to teach him how to play offense because he was so committed defensively. So that's the only player at that age and a youngster that was so committed to defense, that Jackson said that it kind of threw me off, where I had to alter my coaching style, because here's a kid who all he wanted to do was play in his own end, and but Jeff is that way. If you're going to be coached by Jeff Jackson, I can tell you one thing: any Notre Dame prospects that the Red Wings acquire, they will be defensively sound. They will be able to play in their own end.
And you know that's what the Red Wings are looking for, getting better defensively as an entire unit. That's something head coach Derek Lalonde talked about in his entry press conference. Another player that could be labeled as a diamond in the rough in the future, 2021 fifth rounder, 134th overall, Liam BOWER-NILSSON. He's out there wearing 88 for this development camp, and I heard that is a little nod to one of his favorite players in Patrick Kane. So he's wearing 88 today, and Liam has had some offensive firepower in Frölunda, but in their J20 level. He had 50 points in 34 games, played just 10 games in the SHL, so in the big club over in Sweden, but didn't log any points there. It seems like a guy that needs to develop a little bit more, but could have some tremendous offensive upside, Ken.
Yeah, a lot of people, Daniella and Art, think that he's projected to be a good middle six producer, and not a top six forward, but somewhere that could fit in on a third and fourth line. And you need players like that too. It's not everyone's not all going to be a superstar player, but he's a solid two-way forward who showcases some of his quality skills and has very good offensive instincts. So, the more he develops, and that's what's important about what we're seeing here today, is that these players will get instruction from the coaches that are on the ice right now. They were taking a power skating drill a little bit earlier before we came on the air, and they take this information with them. And hopefully the coaches have them work on that in the next couple of years so that when they come to training camp and they're ready to be a Red Wing, they've got all the skills and tools in their toolbox that they need to make it to play in the National Hockey League.
Right, he has good leadership capabilities too. I think I don't know if he was captain of his team in Frölunda, but he was definitely captain of a Swedish junior national team, and he's very, very good friends with Simon Edvinsson. They were both drafted the same year, and as a matter of fact, when Simon was drafted 6th overall by the Red Wings, Liam a little bit lower, as you said, 5th round, I believe, and he the first thing he did was snap a picture with Simon Edvinsson, so they were together for the draft, and that's good. Familiarity. Share that experience with somebody that you're close with, that has gone through, like in their case, the Swedish system, and now they're here in Detroit, and that's somebody obviously to look at. I mean, look, the Red Wings, not even counting the draft that just happened last week in Montreal, is that if you take the last 4 drafts combined, it actually, with the amount of players that Detroit has chosen, it's 7 drafts if they just drafted a player in all 7 rounds. So there is an influx of young talent and young prospects into this organization that is almost unprecedented when you really look at it. How many people that they have, how many players, how they look at it. You just heard Harkov talk about, look, we've expanded our staff. There's virtually, before long, there's going to be a coach for every player. Each player is going to have their own individual, a life coach or something here. But I mean, there's a lot of people out on the ice that are coaching and working with them. And so, this is, and I guess, from my perspective, and Kenny can relate to this too. There was one time where years ago, and I mean, just to show you how the game has evolved in advance, where Lefty Wilson, who was the Red Wings' longtime trainer, was the backup goalie. They had only one goalie on their roster, on the team, and so it's really come a long, long way. So, I mean, I'm looking at this as something as we're seeing here 5 years down the road when this club is positioned to compete for Stanley Cups again. And trust me, if you're my age or Kenny's age, 5 years isn't that long. We're going to look back on this moment. We're going to look back on these drafts and in the way this organization has been put together and all the support staff, and it'll be no surprise that the Red Wings again will be the standard bearer for the NHL. I truly do believe that.
Daniella, you heard Art and I talking about some of the top prospects that you asked us about, like KASPER, Ali, and James, but what are your thoughts? I know you had an opportunity to watch some of these guys on video, and what are your thoughts about some of those top high-end players?
Well, I am really excited about Marco KASPER. I think he's got the size that they need, and when you look at his numbers from what he posted in Rogla last season, they don't pop off the page, But if Steve Yzerman sees your offensive upside, everybody in Rogla sees your offensive upside, I think he's going to develop into a really good player. And they obviously have experience with the Rogla club over in the SHL. Mo Sider even played over there when he was on loan in Sweden. So definitely really excited to see what he's going to bring to the table. And Simon Edvinsson, obviously not here quite yet, but we will get to see him at some point. They're just having some passport issues. As soon as those are resolved, he'll be here, and I think everyone has him pegged as making the Red Wings club next season, so we'll get to see him for the first time in person, which will be really exciting for all three of us.
One of the other things that I made note when KASPER was drafted 8th overall by the Red Wings, Steve Yzerman was talking in his interview, and he said that he has underrated skills. And that tells me that Steve Yzerman, who is a gifted offensive player in his career,
Without question.
obviously sees something about him that maybe some of the other scouts didn't see.
Right.
And that could only help the Red Wings down the road. At least that's what I took out of that interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Kenny, and I think really what that means too is that that's why I think him going back to Rogla, he's going to get more responsibility. Those skills will start to come out. He'll start to develop as a player. I think that that was. I definitely never want to get inside Steve Yzerman's head or anything or put words in his mouth, but I think that that's what he was alluding to. Let's be honest here. The SHL, the Swedish Hockey League, could be the second best overall league in the entire world next to the NHL. I mean, the AHL is a very good league too, and I don't want to be overly effusive here, but the SHL has a program, they have a system, they turn out a lot of great professional hockey players, and I think that the marriage between the Detroit Red Wings and the SHL is a good one, a strong one, vibrant, and I really think that. And you can tell by when Steve talks, or Sean Horkoff, or Danny Cleary, or Chris Draper, or whomever from the Red Wings, Yuri Fisher. I mean, there's no trepidation when they talk about the SHL or sending a player back,
right.
Back to Sweden. They're fine with it. They're cool with it. I mean, Cleary basically said, listen, we don't even give them much of a program anymore because we know when they leave us where they're going, especially the programs in the SHL, which include, like Frölunda, Rogla, and several others.
Yeah, they have a lot of trust in the SHL clubs
Right.
that their players are drafted from, for those coaches and their development staffs to develop them, to send them to North America eventually to turn pro here. Another player that's out there today is Pasquale Zito. I wanted to bring him up while we were mentioning diamonds in the rough earlier. He was a 2021 6th-round pick, and he had 42 points in 49 games playing in Windsor in the OHL last season. He was just recently traded to the Niagara Ice Hogs. Ice Dogs or Ice Hogs? One of the two. I can't read my writing.
Niagara. Though I'm surprised they're not called the Falls or something.
Right, something like that. But in Niagara. So he's another exciting guy that could bring some of that back-end forward talent that you were talking about, Ken.
Well, in our radio broadcast this year, we looked at players of the future that have been drafted by Detroit. And a couple of times we mentioned, Paul and I talked about Zito. And again, you can't have all the same type of players. You have to have a team that's going to be highly skilled. You got to have the workers, the penalty killers, and there's got to be a nice blend between veterans and rookies coming in. But the thing that impresses me about Zito is that he's a pretty emotional player, and I like that. I like guys that can get in there and really get into the action and play with emotion. And he brings a lot of heart into the game. And heart is one of those things that you can't measure. And when you draft a player, that you got to go by feel, I guess. And he's that type of player. A lot of emotion, a lot of heart, feisty. He's a team-first guy. He's not about his statistics or anything like that. And he's not afraid to crash the net. And he can fill all kinds of roles. He's one of those utility players that if you ask him to go out and kill penalties, he'll do it. And he'll do it with heart, and he'll do it with emotion. Same thing if you want him on a check-in line. He'll go out there and do the things that he can do best and fill into that role. So he's one of those guys that's can learn quickly, and he'll do whatever the coaching staff wants him to do just to be successful.
And a really important thing about Pasquale Zito and a lot of players that we're talking about is, especially in the OHL, the whole Canadian Hockey League, which is the Quebec League, the Western League, and the Ontario Hockey League, and the OHL to me, and I'm nothing against the other two leagues, but I think it's one of the best developmental leagues in the world for young talent. But with that said, the OHL missed a whole year. He didn't play hockey. Shane Wright didn't play hockey. I mean, and that hurt those kids. And for Pasquale to come back and have the year that he did, after really just sitting across the river, you know, the Detroit River in Windsor, and not being allowed to play because obviously of COVID, that says a lot about him as a person and as a character, you know, and Ken's right. Ken's absolutely right. If you look at the Red Wings of old, you know, those great teams, how many times have, and I know Ken heard Scotty Bowman say this, or, you know, players on that squad, is that they could roll 4 lines. They had 6 defensemen. They were solid in net. And what that gives you is that, and I love when Scotty would talk about this, and he would say, listen, any way you want to play the game, we can play it.
Yeah.
We can play that, and almost 10 out of 10 times we're going to play it better than you. So, and obviously Steve saw that. He knows what it takes to win. Look at that Tampa team, and Tampa's the same way. Tampa is a team that if you want to try to dictate the play to the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Detroit Red Wings of yesteryear, you're going to be go ahead, because guess what? They're a high-end club, they're high caliber, and they're going to do it, and that's exactly what we're starting to see right now on the ice.
Well, Art, I think you touched on it even more recently, what Steve Yzerman has been able to do in Tampa Bay, and bringing in Derek Lalonde, who was also a part of what happened down in Tampa Bay, winning 2 Stanley Cups, making 3 Stanley Cup final appearances. He knows how to win, and he has that winning culture. He knows what he needs to focus on. He can see what this Red Wings team needs to work on and improve on for next season. And he talked about the process, which I know Red Wings fans hate the word process. They seem to just dislike the word. They want it now, right? I get it.
It's Jimmy Howard's favorite word.
I know.
Whenever you would bring it up.
But hey, you've got to trust the process, right? We have 2 guys in our front office and in behind the bench that know exactly how to do it, because the proof is in the pudding. They have done it. So it's exciting to see some of these young prospects coming through that you mentioned will be a part of that in the next 5 years.
Well, the thing about when you mention the process, that's the way coaches coach today. And it's not just Jeff Blashill who was saying that. It was John Cooper and everybody else in the National Hockey League. Young coaches that are coming in now as head coaches or assistant coaches in the National Hockey League, that's how they coach their team. So whenever you hear the process, I know everyone thinks, well, that's Jeff Blashill. Well, that's how everybody is now. That's how players are coached in today's game. It's not about turning a light switch on and getting to be a Stanley Cup champion from nothing. I mean, it just takes time. And you know, Steve Yzerman said he's in year 3 of the rebuild. And again, you can't put your finger on when this team is going to turn it over and be a Stanley Cup champion. All you can do is you continue to draft players like the Red Wings have been. They're solid players, and hopefully you cross your fingers that you treat them right, you develop them, you make them watch their growth and development, and sooner or later you have a core group of young players that are going to lead your team to the promised land.
Well, Ken's absolutely right. You know, and the word process is interesting because I can remember asking Jeff Blashill, who was heavily involved in Team USA and as a coach, and you know, and Ryan Martin, who's now with the Rangers, who was also heavily involved in Team USA. And I know when the development program started by Jeff Jackson, who was the first head coach of the U.S. development program when it was in Ann Arbor at the Ice Cube, you know, he said, we're trying to build an identity or an American identity of how hockey is played. So whenever we have national teams, most of these kids know what our style is. They've all kind of played together. They've all come up through the ranks. Well, when I asked Jeff, is there an American style of hockey? Is there a Canadian style of hockey? Is there a Finnish style, or is there a Swedish style? He said the process for everybody in the entire world is exactly the same. So this game, as it becomes more international and in different countries are developing players and putting resources into facilities and all that, what you're going to see is, and I thought this was a really interesting comment, is that certainly, you know, there's some variations to the process, but at the end of the day, the process for everybody is essentially the same. And he also said that's because, you know, we're kind of a copycat.
Yep.
You know, if something's working, you know, everyone's going to try it.
Well, exactly. I mean, don't fix what isn't broken. So yes, I guess that our message to everyone is trust that process, because the end result is going to be fantastic, and you are all going to be so excited to see
The
our
process is good, Danielle.
Yes, exactly. The process is a good thing. There is a player out on the ice that I wanted to mention, number 72, Trenton BLISS. He's a left winger, and he was signed by Grand Rapids. in March of this year. So just a few months ago, he was signed by Grand Rapids after playing at Michigan Tech in his last season there. He had 40 points in 36 games. He did play a few games with Grand Rapids at the end of the season, but that's a player that could sneak his way up here, right? If he plays well in Grand Rapids, it could be a guy we see in Detroit.
Well, I don't know much about Bliss, to be honest with you. I do know that he's from Dallas, Texas, and that his favorite food is steak. And I guess if you grow up in Dallas, you love steak. And,
There's a lot of steakhouses in Texas.
How did you figure that one out? Did you see an interview?
Ken's been to Dallas. He that's his second favorite state, Texas. So
yeah, and their team plays on Thanksgiving, just like the Lions. But let's get back to hockey. No, you know what? He's a do everything kind of forward, in my opinion. And he's one of those guys that if you ask him to play defensive and protect the puck, he will do that, and he'll do everything. He's a team guy, just like Zito was. I was talking to you a little bit earlier. He did play 2 games with the Grand Rapids Griffins, but again, it's the experience that you learn while playing in the American League. And let's face it, the American League's a tough league. I mean, it's not an easy league to play in, and sometimes it's a lot more difficult the way you play in the American League than it is in the National Hockey League. I mean, it's a little physical, and it's demanding on your players, and you play 3 games and 3 nights sometimes towards the end of the season when it becomes a grind. It's difficult, but he'll learn how to play, and I'm excited about Grand Rapids because the fans there are going to see a lot of these players that we're looking at here today in the near future, and they're going to see them before we do here in Detroit.
That's right. It's going to be some exciting times for Grand Rapids. One of the other players we have not yet mentioned, number 61 out there today, Ethan Phillips, and he was a 2019 4th-round pick. And he had an interesting history with his family being a billet family in Halifax. He actually was a billet family for the Red Wings' own Philip Zadina and Nico Hischier, who was a number 1 pick overall to New Jersey. So definitely has a hockey background there. Played last season at Boston University.
Well, BU obviously a pretty good program. I mean, kind of fallen a little bit on hard times lately, but it's all cyclical. This is a big year for Ethan Phillips, I would imagine. He has to. I'm sure that he really wants to. Have a better year.
He has to qualify by next year, right? They would have to give him that entry-level deal in June of 2023.
I think the league changes. I mean, now for the guys. The Red Wings have till August on some of their prospects that they have to qualify if they, give them an entry-level contract. But I don't think that Ethan Phillips and, another guy, Robert Master-Simone, who was drafted in the same year and they were teammates, I think that, it's really weird because we're talking about very, very young players, very, very young people. But, this is professional sports, and there's timelines and there's certain criteria that you're going to have to meet along the way. And I think that, Ethan Phillips, who isn't very, very big at all, but, has a lot of ability. And it'll be interesting to see exactly how he develops this upcoming season because, the Red Wings are going to have to make a determining factor on him, and so he's headed for a really big year.
Right.
Or he, I'm sure that in his mind, and I hope he does have it, a big year.
Well, he was one of 4 of the so-called elderly statesmen that I have in this development camp this year
98
because they were drafted in 2019, and he along with 3 others are the elderly statesmen here. So, they're a little bit older than some of the young kids that have just been drafted or have been in the organization for a couple of years already. So, as Art mentioned, time is reality, and time becomes a factor. And as you continue to grow and these younger kids come in, somehow you have to find a way to get up to that next level.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention, too, we are seeing Team How right now as a reminder for Thursday's stream. We will get to look at all of the prospects that are here. I don't know if you remember in 2019 when we aired the 3-on-3 tournament. We're going to get another 3-on-3 tournament on Thursday, so that's going to be really exciting. We'll
I can't wait.
At 8 a.m., bright and early.
8 a.m. I'm living at the Belfour Center. I'm
Art's
camping out here.
Spend the night
Wednesday night.
Not sleep, but it will be really exciting to see all of the prospects that are here competing in that 3-on-3 tournament on Thursday.
And to kind of piggyback on Ken's point, my first draft when I was fortunate enough to get hired by the Red Wings was in Chicago in 2017. And that draft, the Red Wings had a slew of draft picks. I'm not sure how many, I think it was double digits, at least 10. And that was Michael Rasmussen was taken, and Gus Lindstrom was taken. And then you look at all the other players, and I met all of them, all great, wonderful people. in that 2017 class, the way it's going to pan out, 2 of those guys are going to be were signed by the Red Wings. So I mean, that goes to show you exactly how competitive and what these young men are looking for. I mean, I know that this is it's great to put on the red and white and be part of it, but the cold hard reality is that you have to start showing something on the ice, and and if not, then then unfortunately make sure that that you go to class if you're in college.
One of the things I enjoy doing is going into the media guide, and you look back over the years on who eventually were drafted and made it with the Red Wings. And the thing is you draft maybe 9 to 10 people every year, but if you can get 3 people in a draft year eventually down the road to become Red Wings, then that's a pretty darn good draft year. Sometimes if you're really lucky and you get guys like Zetterberg who are in the late round, or Datsuk, then that's a really, really good year. But, let's face it, the Red Wings just drafted, 9 or 10 players, and, 8 of those players might not ever make it with the Detroit Red Wings.
Well, it's really, really funny because, when I was coming up, I was always a huge Red Wing fan my whole life, and, like Ken was. And, we didn't really follow the draft. You'd hear the draft, and then you'd see, like, the next day in the newspaper, the Free Press in the morning and the news, which was delivered in the afternoon, that you'd read about, and you see this list of players, and I would go around and tell all my friends, oh, Terry Richardson, man, he's the next goaltender for the Red Wings. Terry Richardson, Fred Williamson, I think, and I would look, Joey Koster's cousin, Corey Koster, I mean, I would just take these names and I would be fixated on them, having no idea whether they were going to make it or not, but they were, much like Ken mentioned the Lions, like whomever the Lions draft, they're my all-time favorite player because maybe they'll finally turn that franchise around. And, and I'm thinking to myself, and that's how it used to be. Well, today, it's entirely different. We know so much about these kids. I joked around, and you guys know this, Elite Prospects, which is a great scouting service. Their draft guide for this year, it came in 2 sections, is over 1,000 pages. I'm not exaggerating, 1,000 pages.
Have you read it all yet?
No, I have not, and I've decided I'm just going to concentrate on the Red Wing draft picks. Yeah, unless Steve makes a trade or two, and then I'll have to dig down in there. But I mean, that's just the way. That's just the evolution. And Sean Horkoff talked about it too, just about the different coaches and everything that we're seeing. And in a way, it's kind of exhilarating because of what we do, where. We're here watching it being built up from the foundation, and and it is really quite extraordinary to see.
And how about Cross HANAS? We haven't talked about him yet. He was a 2020 second-round pick, 55th overall, playing in the WHL, and he has been great in the WHL. 86 points in 63 games. He really started to come on. He was somebody that we talked to Sean Horkoff about when we did the Word on Woodward. They're super impressed with the strides that he made this year. So glad to see him back here. Excited for what he might do in the next couple of years.
Well, Daniella, Art always talks about his conversations that he has with Steve Yzerman, and
I don't know where these conversations happen, by the way.
Only in my head, I think.
Cannot confirm.
but the thing that Art always brings up is that Steve Yzerman likes high hockey IQ when it comes to players. And when you mention the name Cross HANAS, that's what he has. He has a high hockey IQ, and as you mentioned, 86 points in 63 games played with Portland. And he's one of a handful of players that the Red Wings have drafted that are actually the best of the best. I mean, you look at Simon Edvinsson, he was the best of the best over in Europe. Niederbach had a really good year. Kosa was the best of the best in Edmonton with the Oil Kings. So not only are they drafting really good players, but they dominate a lot too. And Cross HANAS is that kind of guy. He was up there and leading in league scoring with Portland last year in that league that he plays in the Western Hockey League. He's got high-end puck handling skills, lethal whenever he's in the offensive zone, and he's got a pretty sneaky shot, which sometimes fools a lot of goaltenders. But he's that kind of player too that's pretty versatile. He'll play the center position and the wing position. Maybe he's more suited for the wing than center, but obviously in a pinch he could play both.
Yeah, it's great, and he just made a really nice move. I don't know if anybody got to see that on the stream there, but that he made a nice move between the legs to take a shot here. They're just working on some drills, going to the net, beating defensemen, and trying to finish. And I think cross HANAS, that's what you want to see, right? Not only do you want to see guys dominating, like you mentioned, Ken, you also want to see them leading. We talked about Dylan James winning a championship in the USHL last year. We've got Shai Buyam here, Carter Mazer here this weekend that won a championship with Denver. So you're getting really high caliber hockey players at their level, which is hopefully going to translate into the AHL and the NHL eventually.
On winning programs, that's
right,
the thing
exactly.
too. And you cannot put an emphasis on much more than on a when you're in playoffs or you're in for a college championship. Those games when everything's on the line, especially in college with a one-game knockout, it means a lot. And you want to see how those players perform. Do they crack under pressure? Do they bring it to the next level?
Right.
What kind of players are they? And the players that the Red Wings have selected, you mentioned Mazer and some of the others here, they've risen to the occasion, and they were they were better and didn't crack under pressure.
Well, it's unteachable stuff. And Art, I want to just make one more point, and then you can go ahead with this one. But Dylan James and Marco Kasper, as we mentioned, we talked to Chris Draper for the Word on Woodward, and that is going to be coming out sometime today. So keep an eye out for that. It's a great conversation, giving you a little bit of a sneak peek right now. He said that Dylan James scores big goals. Often when he scored a goal, it was a game-tying goal or a game-winning goal. So he was a player that you could look to when you needed to make that comeback or put one in the net. Same thing with Marco Kasper. He said in bigger games, Marco Kasper played better, which is something scouts love to see.
Well, they want the puck on their stick in that moment, and in several Red Wing prospects, that has been part of the analysis by scouts. And, Cross HANAS is interesting. The Red Wings have signed him. They signed him to an entry-level deal. And the biggest thing with Cross HANAS and with a lot of these fellas is that will his game translate offensively into the NHL? Because the secret, the Red Wings definitely need centers, but they need consistent goal scorers too. They need guys who can put the puck in the net. And if Cross HANAS or Carter Mazer or among the forward core, I think we're all looking forward to seeing what Phillips Zadina can do this year for the Red Wings because he was a gifted scorer in the Quebec League. That also is something that we have to look forward to because most of these guys can play. But at this point, the Red Wings are looking for high-end talent. They're looking for top six forwards who can put the puck in the net.
Well, the other thing, too, is you can't sign everybody. And some of these draft choices, and even players that have played on the Red Wings right now, some of them may have to be moved just to make room for some of the younger players coming in and players that maybe have underperformed or maybe are a better fit somewhere else than on your team, then you have to take a look at that. So we got free agency coming up, and it'll be interesting to see what Steve Yzerman does in free agency and whether or not some trades will be made and, to make the Red Wings a better team.
Going back to some of the players that were drafted in this 2022 NHL draft, you have Dmitry Buchelnikov, who was taken in the second round with their second round pick, and he's Russian, so it was hard to get there. Like Draper told us that he didn't really get to see him play in person, but scouts in Russia were so high on him that they felt that they should take him in that second round that high. So, Art, I'm just wondering your thoughts on that player. Well, it's an interesting pick. We talked about this too with Chris Draper.
I don't think anybody doubts that he is skilled and has talent and can put the puck in the net. With Russian players, especially with the volatile world situation right now, when are we going to see him? What the heck's really going on? Is he going to be caught up in some sort of political game that is beyond our comprehension? With all that said, though, as a player, and Chris Draper said this, and Ken knows this, and Craig Button has told me this for years, is that when your time's up and you're on the clock, and there's a player there that you want, take him. Regardless of what anybody else thinks or whatever they say, if that's what you want, and Dimitri's that type of player. And, Red Wings have had really good luck with Russian players. Hell, the Russian Five revolutionized hockey. So if you look at that, then, I'm eager to see him. I would love to see him get over here. The only thing is the question mark, and this is not in, it's not in Meyer Kenny's hands. We wish it were, then he'd be out on the ice right now. But with that said, it's not even in the Red Wings' hands. This is a situation that's going to have to play itself out. Hopefully it plays itself out rather quickly, and somehow they can get them over to North America and see what they really have.
Well, I don't want to compare the two time periods when it comes to the political standpoint, but I just had a conversation with Jimmy Devellano not too long ago, and he was talking to me about the drafts in the 80s when taking Russian players and getting them to America was super difficult, getting them over here to play. And he always said, you know what, you have to take that risk on those players. If they're the best player available, you have to take the risk. So, again, don't want to compare the two time eras. I think it's going to be solved quicker than that would be, but it's the same thing. If you like him that much, risk it.
Well, it's really funny, and Ken knows this, when Jimmy talks about drafting Sergei Fedorov, you know, at that point, the Russian Ice Hockey Federation and then, at that time, the Soviet Union, they were letting guys go at like 30 to go over into the NHL because some of them were drafted like Larionov or Fetisov, and then they would have to give some of their NHL salary to the Russian Ice Hockey Federation. And Igor Larionov tells a great story where he played for, I think it was Vancouver originally, had his rights. He goes there and plays. He's sending money, or I don't know if they're garnishing it or whatever, but it goes to the Russian Ice Hockey Federation. He goes back to Russia, and he looks, and he sees the Russian Ice Hockey Federation guys driving in Mercedes and stuff, and he goes back to his hometown in Russia, and it's a dilapidated rink. These kids don't even have rusted skates and all that kind of stuff. So he left and decided to play in Switzerland, and then gave money to his clubs and made sure it went to youth hockey, and they kind of changed it. My point to this story being that, no one knew. The Russians are letting these guys go at 30. Do we draft Sergei Fedorov at like 18 or 19 and wait 8 years or something for him? They just didn't know. So Jimmy says they're sitting there at the draft, and the scouts are looking, and it's the 4th round, and they're saying, wow, geez, Fedorov's still available. And Jimmy goes, well, how good is he? And, and they say, well, he's definitely the best player available right now. Not only that, most of us feel he is the best player in the draft. And then Jimmy, and it's only Jimmy can say, and, it's a family show. So he said, well, you know what I said, Art? I go, well, what'd you say, Jimmy? Draft him. And so that's exactly what they did. They exactly drafted him. So, and we talked to Draper about this yesterday too, Danielle, as you know. I mean, look, they're scouring the planet for hockey players, right? And it doesn't matter what the situation is, or you hope for the best for everything works out. But boom, I mean, if there's somebody there that you want, you just take them, and it doesn't matter. All that other stuff will work itself out.
We're watching Team Howe on the ice. They're doing their stretching right now towards the end of this skate. But just one quick thing. I think one of the all-time best names that I think was selected in the draft right now for the Red Wings, he's on Team Lindsay. We don't see him on the ice now, is Amadeus Lombardi. Rock me, Amadeus. I can't wait to say that on the air.
Oh, Art already said it in our interview yesterday, too. Rock me, Amadeus. But he is a player that Draper really liked, too. And they actually, I think we made the comparison that Amadeus was a lot like Chris Draper.
I watched him doing the drills yesterday, going through the pylons. He is such a smooth skater, too, and he was really a joy to watch.
Yeah, it'll be exciting, especially when we stream again on Thursday, 8 a.m. We'll have that 3-on-3 tournament, so we'll get to see
a lot of ice.
All of the prospects that are here. Art, what are you looking forward to most about the rest of this week at development camp?
I really want I want everybody to walk away from this, Red Wing officials and players. I really want them just to kind of walk away and feel good about themselves and about where their game is at, and the Red Wings to think, we've got a really good group of kids here, high hockey IQ kids, and I think that they're on the path. They're going to do everything possible to make themselves Detroit Red Wings, and we're going to give them everything possible to help them along the way. I think that's what I really want to see. I mean, I thought that Dan Cleary yesterday was really honest, brutally honest, in a good way, about saying, look, this is not, these guys aren't going to become Detroit Red Wings during this camp. And this isn't a highly competitive camp. What we're looking forward to, what we want to see, we just want them to get acclimated. And as I said, they want to just get to know each other and feel good about each other. So I think that's what I'm looking for.
That's exactly it. And Ken, what about you? What are you looking forward to seeing this week in development camp?
Well, I just think it's a growth process, and what's important, I think, is the instruction from the coaching staff to get them to like organize their toolbox, so to speak. You know, if they need to be strengthened in their skating, they've got a couple years to work on it. And what they get, the information, whether it's eating right, skating, lifting weights to get your body ready for to play in the National Hockey League, it all starts here.
Yep.
And, you know, your good habits all start here, too. And it's like going to college, right? You're a freshman in college. You don't know what college is all about, but you hope that you get the right instruction so that you learn, and so that by the time you're a senior, you know, you've done well in 4 years. Unfortunately, that wasn't me. But
I probably could have used the nutritionist side of things when I was in college.
Exactly. But those are the types of things that young players need right now. How to eat, how to strengthen your body, how to work on your skating, so that when it's an opportunity for you to make it to training camp, you're ready and you're ready to win a job.
That's right. Let's bring back Carley Johnston for her final thoughts. She's down on ice level, so she had a little bit of a different view of development camp drills today. Carley, what did you notice?
I noticed it's very cold in here today.
Yeah, what's with the short sleeves? You should know better by now.
The biggest mistake. You know, I know we work in an ice rink for a living, and I get that. You know, this is 5 years in. I understand it's cold here. But, like, even my nail beds are cold. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I think they're trying to keep that ice crisp. It's been a long summer off here for the Red Wings. But what am I looking forward to? I mean, I do want to talk about a couple people that were out on the ice for the first time that we didn't mention, and that's associate coach Coach Bonner and goalie coach Westland. So
very
not sure on the pronunciation of the associate coach, but just interesting to see the different systems that they'll put into play at development camp. I mean, we'll see maybe a little slice of it, not much. And I'm also looking forward to seeing Marco KASPER and maybe him trying out winger. Not sure. Steve Yzerman said he could play all 3 forward positions, so we'll see how versatile he can play, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that. But like you said earlier in the stream, a lot of forward-heavy draftees that we have, a lot of centermen. So looking forward to also seeing hopefully Niederbach, Vollander, and Edvinsson coming to camp soon. Fingers crossed they get that passport issue resolved, but just a lot of excitement to have everybody out here in the flesh and be able to see all the players. And I know Steve Yzerman hasn't seen a lot of these draftees and prospects in a while, so it's really exciting to be able to all get together here at Little Caesars Arena at Balfour Training Center.
That's right. It's nice to have all of us together again, too, doing development camp. It's been awesome. So, Carley, thank you so much, and great interview with Sean earlier, too.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, guys. We've got an exciting week ahead of us. I hope that you're all prepared. I know Art will not be sleeping on Wednesday night, so make sure you catch up on your sleep the next couple of days.
Wednesday's going to be a big day. I'm not even going to be here at the arena because I'll be monitoring the free agent tracker, and that I would expect. If Steve is Steve, there might be a few moves or two that are going to be made on Wednesday in the free agent market.
Well, that'll give us a lot to talk about during the 3-on-3. So if there's a lull in the action, maybe the Red Wings will make a couple of moves that we can talk about.
Definitely. We'll have all of that info.
Who knows? Maybe Gino himself will be here once the Red Wings sign him. You never know.
All right.
There you go. Throw that spaghetti on the wall.
Yeah, come on, man.
Wishful thinking on my part, boy. He would look good, though.
All right. Well,
he grew up a Red Wings fan, by the way.
Yes. Stay tuned to all Red Wings social media channels for all news that has to do with development camp and free agency as well, which begins on Wednesday. We'll be back here on Thursday at 8 a.m. bright and early. You can drink your coffee and enjoy some Red Wings 3-on-3 development camp hockey. We'd like to give a big shout out to Huntington Bank for presenting our development camp streams this weekend. One more thing, if you're interested in this year's 2022 draft class, make sure you tune into the Word on Woodward later today because Chris Draper was excellent. And that's a wrap for us here today. We will see you all bright and early on Thursday morning.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you.